is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 18, our Julio Cascante episode. My name is Zach Graham, your host here on the North End Podcast. Happy to be coming to you here on a Wednesday afternoon, smack dab in the middle of the World Cup group stage. Excited to talk Austin FC news, other MLS news, little World Cup updates, and some updates on our goal of the year bracket. But getting ahead of myself a little bit here, let me bring in my co-host here on the North End Podcast, my good buddy, on record as my best friend. It's Ian Michaud, a.k.a. E, a.k.a. Le James, a.k.a. Sebastian Driussi, a.k.a. Easterdamus, a.k.a. Pap E. O'Daniel. E, how you doing?
You just gonna keep adding one every episode now?
When it's appropriate.
We'll have a whole pod that's just an introduction of me.
Yeah, why not?
I'm doing well. It is balaclava weather, as you can tell.
I see that.
I was very excited. It's my favorite fashion season. It's balaclava season. Yeah, my dog is just kind of staring at me. He's been staring at me for about 5 minutes now. Mm-hmm. He wants to play, I guess. I don't know, but we got work to do. Soccer never stops, apparently.
No, it does not.
Soccer never stops. So,
especially on a World Cup year.
Yeah, for sure.
But before we get to the World Cup, we'll talk United States draw with Wales. We'll talk some of these crazy upsets. Another one happening this morning. And we'll kind of, I think we can preview to the best of our ability that U.S. and England match coming up here on Black Friday. But let's talk Austin FC first, because that's what you and I are most interested in. And I would assume that's what most of our listeners are interested in if they're tuning in here, outside of just our wit and charm.
For sure.
So it was a busy week, actually, for Austin, despite most of the soccer world's attention being focused on the World Cup. We got 2 new players, E.
Indeed.
And
exciting times.
Sans green smoke from Precourt. And I think, as much as I would like to clown our owner for maybe like not being ready with the smoke or not knowing, I think just the manner in which these 2 players were acquired probably didn't give him time, because we'll talk about it here. One was taken in the re-entry draft and one was taken with the end of the season waiver process, which does give me an opportunity here, E, if I may, to give us our weekly off-season salary cap / just MLS stupid rule training camp.
Beautiful.
So the re-entry draft is how we acquired this first player, Sofiane Djeffal. We will talk Djeffal here in a minute, but I had to acquaint myself with the re-entry draft, and I have a feeling that I'm going to be acquainting you, E, with the re-entry draft here as we talk. So let's get into it here. So this is an annual event, shocker, where the MLS teams select players who are out of contract or had their options declined by teams. And this draft, it was created in the 2010 CBA negotiations. Under the previous rules, clubs could essentially hold what amounted to like a 48-hour first right of refusal on players. So essentially, right, like guys couldn't go sign with other teams for the first 48 hours of their free agency. Mm-hmm. And I guess this re-entry draft was created to give the players a little bit more power, a little bit more say, in terms of their previous team couldn't really hold them or force them to take a lower salary or anything like that, holding their rights. So it seems like in my brief research that I did on the re-entry draft over the past week, it seems like most people around the league, especially on the players' side, kind of praised this re-entry draft process. Okay. But I've seen others who said it didn't necessarily or hasn't necessarily worked as intended, because relatively I guess compared to like other similar processes or drafts or free agencies in other sports, certainly that you and I are accustomed to, there's a little bit of a lack in terms of player movement around this reentry draft, and we'll see it here when we get into the results of the 2022 reentry.
Okay.
Couple criteria here for the players available in the reentry draft. 3 bullet points here to read off. Players who are at least 23 years old and have a minimum of 3 years of MLS experience, whose options were not exercised by their clubs, are available in this draft. Players who are at least 25 years old with a minimum of 4 years MLS experience, who are out of contract and whose club does not offer them a contract at their previous salary. And finally, players who are at least 30 with a minimum of 8 years league experience out of contract, whose club does not wish to re-sign them. That is your player pool here. So from what I saw, also, I guess I should also say, players can choose to opt out of this process. And so I believe there was only one, at least that was like widely publicized, was Christian Tello for LAFC. And reportedly the two sides, I think when that happens, it usually means that the player and the club are either negotiating or already have an agreement ready to go. So I guess, and we could also do a little history lesson here. So again, the 2010 is when this began. That 2010 reentry draft. And I should also say this again, just to highlight another aspect of the MLS that is just overly complicated and a little bit silly. There's 2 stages of the reentry draft here. There's stage 1, where clubs may not select their own players who are in that pool. If you select a player in stage 1, the club must exercise the option or extend a new contract offer to the player. If the player rejects that offer, that club still holds the right of first refusal for that player in MLS. So it would make them, if the club chose to prevent them from signing with somebody else in the MLS, they can do so. So essentially forcing the player out of the league. And then stage 2, go ahead.
Forcing them out of the league?
Well, so yeah, if the drafting club holds the right of first refusal on a player selected in stage 1, just for MLS. So like a club, a Liga MX club, a club from South America, Europe, wherever, could come in and offer a contract, that player could take it. But it's not like if we select E in the reentry draft, right? Houston cannot then offer you a contract if we cannot agree. So I would think that's something as a player doesn't seem player friendly to me.
So it's kind of like matching an offer sheet.
Yeah, that's probably the best like NBA, explaining it to me in NBA terms comparison, right?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to find some sort of place to like anchor myself. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, we've also just never, like, how many times do you deal with a sport where there's leagues all over the world where everyone are coming in and out and moving and being traded. You're dealing with all kinds of shit like that. So yeah, all right.
So then stage 2. Clubs may select from players that are under contract and those not under contract. If a player is not under contract, the club will be required to make a genuine offer within 7 days. And if an agreement cannot be reached, the drafting club will hold the right of first refusal. Clubs may, the main difference here, clubs may select their own players in the stage 2 draft only after all other clubs have declined to select them. And that's one thing you'll see in the draft order is a lot of teams in this reentry process just pass on their picks. It's a lot. We'll see that in the 2nd and 3rd round of the super draft as well. Like that's something we're more familiar with as a new club. You see it as well here in the reentry draft. And your history lesson that I kind of diverted from a few minutes ago, that first reentry draft in 2010 in stage 2, the number 1 pick, Josh Wolf. Taken by DC United from SKC. And the 2nd pick there, brutal day for SKC, Jimmy Conrad, taken by Chivas back in 2010. So a Josh Wolf, Jimmy Conrad 1-2 there. So you can find big name MLS players in this process. And we certainly won't call our new acquisition a big name, at least yet here in the league, because this is a young boy. Both of these new guys that we got. So Sofiane Djeffal was Austin's re-entry draft pick. They traded $50K in GAM. If we went through our GAM and TAM lesson last week. So $50K in GAM from Austin to DC United. The draft order in this reentry draft is just reverse order of standing. So DC, Wooden Spoon, had the first pick. Only cost $50K to trade what I believe was our 26th spot or 25th, something. We were up there.
Yep.
For that first overall spot, and then picking Djeffal, who was a member of DC United.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, just like it's
that's a move. That's business.
Yeah. And let's talk. It sounds like good business. Let's dive in a little bit more. So Djeffal, as a young player, spent more than a decade in the academy system of his hometown club. That's FC Nantes. I'm not a French speaker. Didn't take French in high school or anything like that. So I'm sure I'm butchering that name, but that's a League One club over there in France. So, it's a Big Five league, the academy of one of those clubs. This guy's, he's been brought up in a system like that. Yep. Ended up coming over to the States, played at Oregon State, was all Pac-12 first team all 4 years. Freshman of the year in 2018, player of the year in 2021. So he's got a very solid college pedigree. I think the American college soccer system, right, is not super high class, but he was at the top of that pool of players, at least on the West Coast there, right? Then was obviously played for DC last year. Was actually fourth on the club in minutes. Again, this is a 23-year-old midfielder. I think mostly playing defensive mid. So this is a depth piece for Austin, right? And I think a long-term piece for the future, maybe, especially, we've talked before about Alex Ring and his advanced age, soccer-wise, and certainly when you compare him to some of the other young guys on this roster. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we have this next pro team that we're going to have to fill out a roster for next year. Yeah. I think Djeffal really fits just kind of the direction of the club. Super high upside. At least it appears to me, like I said, fourth in the club in minutes. Like, obviously DC was terrible last year, but getting that many minutes at such a young age for any MLS club, I think is a plus for somebody that Austin would be acquiring right now. 28 appearances, 19 starts for United last year. 27 interceptions, 8 key passes, which I think, that gets the Nashville fans a little excited. 1 assist on the year for Djeffal with DC last year. So, E, your thoughts on the first of 2 acquisitions from last week for our boys?
I like it. It sounds like we really wanted them too.
Having to trade up, right, for the one.
Yeah, we went up there and we got him. Obviously, we're going to lead into, some Felipe news a little later. Mm-hmm. But this looks, heir apparent to our defensive mid, long-term situation. Definitely not going to scoff at his performance at Oregon State. We'll take it. It's much better than him having none of those accolades.
Right.
And to your point about, the amount of minutes he got this year, that's real game experience. And while DC was not any sort of relevant team in the league this year. Again, those are minutes he played. He got better. He learned, so I like it. And like you said, with our next pro team, we're going to have some dudes there as well. And, it's a long-term future forward thinking kind of pick. And I'm all for that. We got swept up in a really, really successful season,
right?
This last year, and we shattered all kinds of expectations, but we still have to have that long-term kind of vision plan for the squad. So yeah, I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah. And I think you were the one that noted to me last week when, we saw this signing. I posted in the group chat and we all started kind of weighing in a little bit. I think you noticed on Twitter some DC fans not happy. The comments, right? And I think that's always a good sign, right? When another team, if I guess the most elementary example I can think of right off the top of my head is like if we got rid of Redis, right? If we offloaded him to some other team, the comments may be like, Oh, good. Take him.
Yeah.
That was not the case, I think, with what we saw around a Jeffal from the DC fans that did choose to weigh in there.
Yeah.
The other acquisition, and this is off the end of the year waivers list, which I think requires less of an explanation, but an explanation nonetheless. End of year waivers process gives clubs that finished at the bottom of the 22 standings the first opportunities to select players who are out of contract at the end of the year, or those whose options are not exercised or not subject to the right of first refusal, and who are not eligible for free agency or the reentry draft. So, yeah, I don't understand still. Again, hopefully I'll find more as we go here throughout the offseason, but how you could be out of contract, not have your option exercised, but still not be eligible for free agency.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to explain that to me.
You signed a lifetime deal.
Yeah. So it's a much shorter list here. I want to say it was like right around 20 players available in this waiver process. And obviously Austin FC down in terms of the order here, 26th out of the 29 teams. St. Louis City SC is in this process, and they have the last pick. They will get the first pick in the super draft, but last pick here in the waiver order. So Austin at 26 ended up choosing Alfonso Ocampo-Chavez, who is a 20-year-old forward. He's 5'10", and was previously with the Sounders. So, my first thought was, okay, this is like a guy who was just a teenager with Seattle. Is this one of those fuckers that beat us 2 years ago? And it wasn't. It wasn't, actually. But still another good part of their academy system / Next Pro system over the last few years. He's a California native. He's represented the United States at the U14, U15, and U17 levels. So that's a good sign, right? Yep. And at the U17 World Cup in 2019, I believe, appeared in all of the matches for the U17 US team there. So clearly a talented kid, just 20 years old, spent last season with the Next Pro team there in Seattle, which I thought is cool because and it's in a different city. So maybe that lends itself to the different name, or maybe this team was a USL side before and became the Next Pro affiliate of Seattle, but the Tacoma Defiance. I thought that was a cool team name. And for us, I think ours is Austin FC 2. We could do a little better than that, right?
We can definitely do better than that.
Ocampo-Chavez, who we may or may not at some point be calling AOC. As,
we will not.
23 appearances for him with the Defiance last season, 9 goals, 4 assists, so producing at a high rate there for Seattle's Next Pro team in Tacoma. And again, with us having to not just fill out a Next Pro roster, but continue to build our depth, especially with this season coming up where we know we have 3 extra competitions and potentially many more games than that added on to our 34 in the regular season. Just again, it seems to me like both of these acquisitions are pieces of good business by Claudio.
I agree. We're the Seattle system we know is quite sound, no pun intended. So this is obviously a kid that we're getting who, again, looking towards the future, building something special here, get the Next Pro team stocked up. Let's get these dudes in for some of these cup games that we don't give 2 shits about. Let them go do their thing. I'm all for it. And we talked about throughout the year and really harped on was, we don't have a very deep roster filled with talented players. So taking advantage of these interesting drafts and re-entry drafts and re-entry drafts split down the middle or however they want to do it, I think is a really good thing for us as a club. Yeah,
I agree wholeheartedly. Kind couple other pieces of news, and not all fun, not all sunshine and rainbows.
Nope.
Felipe Martins, no longer a member of Austin FC. Guillermo weeps. That was our buddy's favorite player on the team. So I guess we're just going to have to find a new shithouser for Guillermo to latch onto on our roster. But I don't know, man. I guess I'll throw it to you. Your thoughts on Felipe, what he did for the team this past year. Are you okay with him leaving? What are your thoughts when you saw that come through? Because I think we had some hints that he may not be back over the last week.
I mean, I think we already talked about it really where, we said that if we could get him back on a good deal, great. And if not, okay. Like, yes, right. He was, a fan favorite, a great locker room guy, clearly had a great rapport with two of our best players.
Right.
So, or three at least, it's going to be sad to see him go, wish him well. But again, I don't know if he fits the way this club is moving forward.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I think that's well put. And I think especially that last part, like that he doesn't fit this club moving forward. Like, and for better or worse, it's a lot of it is due to him and his efforts this past year that the club is ready to move on from somebody like that, who I think was so key in the cultural shift that we saw. And winning certainly is the best medicine for that. But Felipe was, before the season, again, he was on trial with the team in training camp. So like wasn't even on a contract, ended up getting the vet min on that supplemental spot. And I mean, I don't think anybody made more in-person appearances, whether it was like charitable or just going for the club, like to schools, hospitals, things like that, doing more media interviews with the local, KView and KXAN and all the local news stations. Like you always saw his face. He always had a positive message to bring. And obviously we have affection for the way he played. And I think if we meet up with him again, it's going to really suck to play against him because we know what he brings. So yeah, I think it's just, it's nothing but love and admiration for Felipe for what he brought to our club. We will certainly always remember him and his year with the team and wish him all the best going forward, of course, unless we meet up with him down the road. We'll get back to some good news here. Brad Stuver, contract extension.
Indeed.
So I think expected, deserved, and it was just a matter of time before we got that Twitter notification, before they posted that article, detailing it, and we got it just a few days ago. We've got 3 more years with our guy in net and an option for a 4th year. So potentially Brad Stuver in Austin through 2026. I guess your thoughts there. I would assume it's all positive.
Yeah. Save man gets paid.
That's very true.
That's all I got to say about that. No, very happy to have Brad locked up long-term here. Obviously one of the bastions for Austin FC. So it's great, man. I mean, it's solidifying the roster, getting ready for next season, loading up, got an exciting schedule.
Yeah.
It's all good stuff.
Yeah, you said save man gets paid 100 saves last year on the nose for Brad Stuver, including 4 out of 12 penalties. Of course, 2 of those coming in that Real Salt Lake playoff matchup. But still, 4 out of 12, a fantastic save rate on pens. And he's had that rate, a higher than average rate, I guess we could say, saving penalties throughout his career.
Saves more penalty shots than Patrick Beverley makes 3-pointers.
Although I think Pat Bev might challenge him on ejections, certainly on games suspended after what he did last night. Jumping back, and this is a big rumor. I think the Austin FC fan base is very much split on this, but it seems like it's going to happen. And this was first reported by our friends at We Are Austin TV and picked up by a couple more national outlets, at least on Twitter. Gyasi Zardes, rumored to be coming to Austin. And the signing is expected to be announced within the next week. And I believe this was Monday afternoon that Hernan tweeted that information out. So Gyasi Zardes, certainly a name that more casual fans probably know, right? Just from his U.S. national team exploits, his MLS exploits, which are plentiful. I mean, 16 goals back in 2014, winning the cup with the Galaxy, 19 goals in his first year with the Crew back in 2018, won the cup with the Crew in 2020, had 12 goals, 4 assists in his 21 matches played for the Crew that year. Fell out of favor 2021 and early 2022 there in Columbus, was traded to Colorado midseason, appeared for Colorado in 26 matches, including off the bench on decision day against Austin, hitting the post there against Stuver in the North End on decision day. 9 goals, 2 assists in his 26 appearances, which is more than Maxi Urruti, who was 9 goals, no assists for Austin this year. So I guess your thoughts on Gyasi Zardes and I guess maybe what would you say to those people who may or may not be more informed than us, but not happy about this rumor? And maybe you're not happy about this rumor.
Oh, no, I'm happy.
Okay.
I'm a Zardes fan. I've been a Zardes fan for a while. I've always liked his game. He's not like, we were so desperate for some sort of savior in American men's soccer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That I feel like people thought and expected this dude to maybe go above and beyond what he is and became, but like he's still a good player.
Especially in this league, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, if we're just talking in the scope of the MLS, you look at somebody who has, I mean, you just ran it off. What's he got? 2 cups?
Yeah, 2 MLS cups.
You know, he scores goals. He knows how to set people up. He still has that athletic ability. It's not obviously what it was, but I think now when you're looking at, you know, Maxi, Gite, Zardes, that's a nice little rotation there.
Absolutely. Right?
I mean, you keep it up with, I mean, you brought up Zardes' goals last year. He wasn't playing in an offense like we had. He wasn't getting opportunities that Maxi was getting, that Gite was getting.
Right.
You know, so I think now you have those 3, and especially with Maxi's age, the way that the way Maxi plays, I think it's awesome. I don't know why we would be upset about it. I mean, obviously I want to see the terms, and I don't think we're throwing a boatload of money at him to get him off Colorado. No. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I think you and I are in lockstep on this signing. Like, we're not jumping up and down saying, oh, this is what's going to put us over the top, right? This is going to put us on LAFC's level. Certainly not. But taking Hosen's salary from last year and giving it to Zardes, and I would hope that we're splitting Hosen's salary into multiple acquisitions. But, like, if it is Zardes, then, like, I'm fine with it, because this guy played 2,000 minutes last year, again, on a team that was not great. But to your point, the services coming in from Driussi and Fagundes and Rigoni now, right? Yeah. And, you know, Kolmanic with the ACL. But if he gets back, right, then you have the, you know, I'm just thinking about all the guys who can provide what I think is above average service into the box. Like, and having a body like Gyasi Zardes is, I feel like, almost the best of both worlds between Musa and Maxi.
I agree.
Like, he brings the speed that Maxi does. Like, I think his defensive work rate, from what I remember, again, like, I haven't watched the most Gyasi Zardes minutes out of every MLS fan, but, like, I don't know, man. Like, I think it's an upgrade, and I think he probably starts next year. Like if we had a match tomorrow.
Yeah.
And let's say we've been through training camp, right? So like I don't think he's coming off the street and getting the start. No, clearly nobody in Wolves' system is doing that. But if this acquisition does come to pass, like We Are Austin TV says it will, I think it's a great signing. And I think, again, like it just gives us so much more flexibility and depth. Like this is legit depth for CONCACAF Champions League, for Leagues Cup. And again, like I think you and I both agree that the Open Cup is what we should really, not maybe dump is too strong of a word, but like play all the young guys and not care if we lose in the Open Cup. But again, just like adding depth, adding a guy like Driussi, it would be and hopefully is going to be, I think, a great move by Claudio because, like, again, MLS vets. Look at the success of guys like Julio Cascante, Nick Lima, Ethan Finley, Maxi Arruti, coming from other places where they were either no longer wanted or fell out of favor and came here and not just start, but produce and be big parts of, at worst, an above average Austin team that is continuing to add depth. I just think people who were expecting us to go out and sign like a striker who's like, oh man, this is a huge, like he's the clear one up top, right? Like, I don't think we needed it. It would be nice. That would be a luxury. And maybe down the road, we get that. But I think this is again, we would love to, we'll see the terms at some point. With MLS, it'll probably be 8 fucking months till we know what these new guys are making. But yeah, I mean, I just, on the surface, it just seems like a really, really solid piece of business by our guy, Claudio.
And he should be quite familiar with our system.
You would think, right? Coming from Columbus.
He should know how we play.
So
I think it's a great move. He's a tenured dude. He brings a winning kind of culture, attitude with him. Absolutely. I mean, who was there? The guy from Atlanta was available. That striker.
Josef Martinez. Yeah.
Well, like, I mean, he has the MVP trophy, but also apparently, was not.
He was wilding last year.
Not a reasonable person.
I mean, and like, a locker room tantrum or two is not going to make me just disqualify somebody from wanting to sign them. But he also didn't perform over the last 18 months. So, and I think Driussi kind of made the best of his situation there in Colorado with his 9 goals, still on his career, 0.51 goals plus assists per 90 minutes. And that was a 0.48 last season with Colorado. So he's right on his career averages there. So if we're getting 80-90% of what career Zardes is, again, I think it's an upgrade.
I agree. Let's see the deal, and we'll give a final kind of grade on that.
We'll go from there. So this is like the Hernan / We Are Austin TV segment here. Another piece of info that I caught from the Strikers live stream last week. So Phil West had a birthday party there over at Hop Squad. They did a little Austin FC panel, which was real. I couldn't make it because of work, and they did stream it, so I watched it back after the fact. Hernan was on that panel, and he said that his sources told him some home renovations going on right now with the Driussi household in Austin, which I take, and I like to put my tinfoil hat on, and I like to read into things maybe too much.
Like
I would say that, I would say that when you get major home renovations done, you're probably not done living at that house.
Or
and
people and other people would be like, he's getting renovations done to make it worth more money to sell.
Flip it. Well, I choose the former.
I agree.
So I say it's good news.
I agree. Let's get someone. We need someone to be staked out outside the Driussi house.
Hey, there's a lot of people, I think, in this country that have a lot of time to be sitting around and watching things all night. We saw that a couple weeks ago, especially out in Arizona. Maybe we can hire some of those people to just watch Driussi all day. and make sure that we don't miss anything. I don't know. Those people they got a lot of time on their hands. Let's get into some other MLS moves here. And we're not totally jumping away just yet from the Austin FC connections to these. There was another rumor on Twitter over the last few days, started by some Columbus Crew fan accounts, is what it appeared to be to me. And it was surrounding Brazilian midfielder Artur.
Yes.
He's been with Columbus the last few years. Won the 2020 Cup with Columbus, again, was on that same team with Zardes. And the rumor was he was traded to Austin. So it was like, well, I guess, we got the old owner. We got Zardes, their old striker. We might as well get the defensive mid too. Turns out these whoever is behind these Crew fan accounts, they got the trade right. Artur was traded, and he was traded to a Texas team. Turns out Houston Dynamo acquiring Artur from Columbus, $300K in GAM, with I believe another 25 or 50K GAM in terms of performance incentives that could go back to Columbus. So Houston continuing to retool around their new front office, new manager, and they weren't done. An hour before we hit record here, E.
Okay.
Andrew Tarbell, Houston Dynamo signee.
My God.
Yeah, so it doesn't feel great for me. I'm happy for Tarbell to get another opportunity. I don't know, and to be honest, I'm not going to pause the pod here to go look it up. Steve Clark has not been great over the last 2 years, even though he's been a very fine MLS keeper throughout his career. And we know how he struggled against Austin, particularly at Q2 Stadium.
Indeed.
But man, I really don't want to have to give our guy Andrew Tarbell the business during Copa Tejas next year if he's actually starting for them. What are your thoughts on Andrew Tarbell to Houston?
It was the same kind of thing with Felipe, right?
Sure.
If we could keep him, great. If not, okay. And now, he's going to have to feel the wrath of 123 if he starts. For whom the Tarbell tolls when you come down there to the north end, friend, or ex-friend.
Ex-friend is right. Fuck, man. Last time we saw him in the north end, he was letting in goals letting goals trickle past him against the Galaxy. So I do wish Tarbell well. Thought the guy could have handled himself a lot worse signing as a presumed starter and then never, and rightfully so. Stuver grabbed that job, but
nothing wrong with getting a nice fat paycheck for being a backup.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure though he, overall, his experience on the pitch in Austin was probably a disappointment from what he envisioned when he got here. So I hope he gets that chance with Houston. Don't perform too well. You still stay below Austin there. Some other rapid fire MLS news around the league. Mauricio Pereira signed a new contract with Orlando. The 32-year-old had 32 appearances last year for Orlando City, 1 goal, 11 assists. It's a non-DP deal for Pereira to stay with Orlando. DC, losing Djeffal to Austin, did some business of their own. They also lost that goalkeeper, David Ochoa. It's a young U.S. keeper, I think, made the switch to become eligible for the Mexican national team recently. Kind of bitched his way out of RSL, where he was first in MLS, signed with DC. Seems like he bitched his way out. He signed with, I forget the club, but one of the Liga MX clubs. So Ochoa out. Tyler Miller in was just with Minnesota. But Tyler Miller, one of the best backup keepers in the league. I think probably a notch above Andrew Tarbell on that list. Last season, Tyler Miller spent 2019 with LAFC, won the Supporter Shield. With them, he's got 101 career MLS appearances. So I think an upgrade there for DC in net. They also signed Pedro Santos from Columbus. It's a 34-year-old left back, made 155 appearances for the Crew. And again, the Crew just shedding their 2022 Cup roster right now. He was on that Cup-winning roster. So, Wayne Rooney and that new DC front office coaching staff rebuilding their roster, hoping to not repeat as Wooden Spoon winners, champions. Neither of those terms sound right. Cincinnati, our old friends, signed midfielder Marco Angulo from Independiente for a $3 million fee. He's a U22 initiative player on the roster, 20 years old, Ecuadorian national, reportedly just missed out making this Ecuador World Cup roster. So a very talented young player going to Cincinnati, adding to their core of both young and veteran players. In Cincinnati, I think, probably likely to make it 2 in a row in terms of playoff appearances next year. It's nice to see them turn things around. Lesser name here. I had never heard of this guy, but 141 appearances in Vancouver for Jake Nerwinski. He signed with St. Louis, the 28-year-old defender. And then we talked about the re-entry draft and stage 1 and stage 2. When stage 2 happened, really only one notable name, at least in my book, was New England trading up to the 1 spot and drafting Bobby Wood. So old U.S. national team strikers in the news this week. Bobby Wood going to New England. Again, he was most recently with RSL.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that wraps up the major MLS moves over the last week or so. I'm sure those will continue to be discussed here on the pod as free agency and the offseason rolls on. Real quick, before we talk about the World Cup, let's talk about the goal of the year bracket, which has been active for us on Twitter over the last week.
Indeed.
We're into the Sweet 16 today, so those polls are live when you're listening to this. It's probably either near the end of these Sweet 16 polls or we're into the Elite 8 or the Final Four. We're going every day. We're not taking Thanksgiving off. We're going to have the Elite 8 up tomorrow on Thanksgiving. No days off.
Soccer never stops.
And Final Four on Friday, and then the championship matchup on Saturday. Hoping to crown the goal of the year for Austin FC's 2022 season. Some interesting facts about the bracket and those 16 goals that remain. 3 6 seeds made it to the Sweet 16. All eight, 1 and 2 seeds are still alive.
Yep.
And we've got a 12 seed still alive. That being Driussi's 85th minute equalizing goal at DC. That's matched up with Ruben Gabrielson's winner from that game. So interesting matchup there. Some other interesting matchups.
I got that one on upset alert.
Yeah? You think the 12 seed goes through there?
I'm putting Gabrielson on upset alert.
Oh, boy. Well, let's see. I can give you the live numbers here, for that matchup. Let's see how you're doing. Where's the 12 seed here? This is just great audio right now. Gabrielson, 60-40 right now. So it is close. Again, we're not pulling in a ton of votes for this. It's like 25 votes each day, but we appreciate every single one of you that has been participating in this bracket process. It's been a blast for us to watch, to discuss with people when they've commented about their thoughts on a vote. First of all, I don't think we discussed this late last week, but our buddy Kevin Morris had some thoughts on one of the first round matchups in the Sentimiento region. That Driussi, 14 seed, his 45th minute goal against Red Bull was matched up against Fagundes, the Copa Tejas winning goal, which was a 3 seed up there in Dallas. And Kevin made the argument that not only should that goal advance out of the first round, but it may have been Driussi's best goal of the season.
Wow.
And with his massive Twitter following, congrats to Kevin, just got over 1,000 followers. One tweet shifts the votes. I mean, just ballot harvesting,
just
massive dumps.
This Soros funded. comes into our democratic vote. Oh, my God.
60-40. Wow. The 14 seed advanced there and then was defeated by Gite's second goal in his hat trick, which is the other interesting matchup here. Gite's second goal from the hat trick matched up against the third goal from the hat trick performance. So
I'm trying to remember which one was my favorite from that game.
It's got to be the third, right? That was the Ruben leading the break, hits it to the left, and then back to Ruben, and he kind of like back heels it or like just touches it on. Yeah, that's gonna win, I think.
Ruben did touch that too.
Yeah, he did. He
did. Definitely directed that towards Moose. God, that game was such a party.
Yeah, and you weren't even there for it.
No, that's true. I was still partying though.
You were. I remember you FaceTimed us right after that. So, that goals bracket will finish up. We'll have the winner crowned by the next time we record a pod. I think probably the next pod going to be after the group stage here. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about the World Cup. We actually did not watch the U.S.-Wales match together. I believe we are getting together on Friday to enjoy that U.S.-England matchup. But first, MLS, 37 players in the tournament, sixth most of any league globally. So you love to see that.
It's coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's coming.
It's been really cool to look at some of these roster starting lineups and watch these matches and be like, hey, like I recognize that guy because I saw him play.
Yeah.
X number of times or on what day with what team. But it's just kind of a cool side effect of having season tickets going to every game and the MLS becoming a higher profile league. So I guess just real quick, your thoughts on the draw against Wales, because I know I have thoughts, but we really haven't talked about it, so I'm interested to hear yours.
I mean, it's 2 games in 1 in that game. So I initially I was quite disappointed because we were clearly the better team in the first half. By a significant margin. And I remember after we got that first goal that we should have kept our mouths shut, but both of us were like, yo, we're about to run these fools off the fucking field right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, an absolutely incredible first half by Team USA there. The balls were crisp. We were moving. We had so much action. The only thing that was shitty about the first half was that Pulisic just could not deliver even a remotely decent set piece ball.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get every single time he tried to take a corner. I was just like, okay, well, the last 3 have barely reached the net.
Yeah. No chance at anybody getting any sort of
nothing.
Good touch on
it. Dude, I don't know. And then obviously second half, the entire game changes. It's a completely different game. They bring in that big fucker Kiefer Moore.
Yeah.
He changed everything for them, really. I don't, maybe not everything, but he just opened up so much for them. He was having so much just air attack plays that we could not handle. Every time he held the ball up, we couldn't get around him. He was just holding it up. And then we looked like absolute shit in the second half. And you have to kind of just be like, damn, it's a good thing that we got out of there with just a point because we very well could have lost that game. I mean, honestly, I'd rather be better than the second half than the first. So I guess my assessment is that we should feel good about getting out of there with a point.
Yeah.
Because we only played 45 minutes of good soccer. Tyler Adams is the man.
Yeah.
If Seba does end up in Leeds, that's a nice little duo for that club.
That'd be great.
That dude I can't get over how much I enjoyed watching him, the impact that he had on so many different aspects of the game. That's probably not showing up on your casual stat sheet. But I mean, shit. if he wasn't out there, we lose that game.
Yeah, yeah, I don't disagree.
He gets scored on multiple times in the second half there. So yeah, just got to regroup and get ready for England. It was a weird game. It was 2 games in 1.
Yeah, I think you kind of broke it down perfectly there. Like, I don't think I have too much else to add there. One thing that does worry me, and it seems excessive, but yellow card accumulation is a big thing in the World Cup. And are you aware of how many yellow cards it takes to catch that suspension?
I'm not, but I do want to add to my assessment that ref was an absolute embarrassment.
Horrendous. And I don't think the official had affected the outcome of the game.
No.
But he was fucking garbage for both teams. But there was a lot more physicality that I think should have resulted not just in fouls, but fucking yellow cards for Wales, in particularly on all the fouls that they were putting on Pulisic. Like,
so many cheap shots on.
Yeah.
So many.
Like, I don't fault them for that strategy. Like, beating him up is a good strategy.
He's tiny. They're big. They were a big team.
But what is this? I mean, I don't know, man. That I was furious at the official multiple times.
I was furious at the official as well, several times, particularly on the Pulisic shit, because it was late, it was cheap, it was excessive, and it kept happening. And he was clearly frustrated. And outside of his absolutely terrible deliveries on set pieces, he was great. Outside of that, he was clearly our most impactful player, putting us in all kinds of situations to get a goal.
Yeah. I mean, he's saucy with it, man. He's very talented.
Yeah, he's great. But they were big. They had a game plan to be physical with him. They took it too far. The ref, he was awful.
So the answer for a yellow card accumulation?
Okay.
2. 2 yellow cards gets you suspension.
1 more than 1.
Yeah, that's good math right there. So that means Ream, Dest, McKinney, all in danger of picking up another yellow and a suspension. And those, the accumulation does not reset until, I believe, the semifinals. So I think you are 4 more matches away from getting that count reset.
That's
also Kellen Acosta came in 74th minute and also picked one up.
The McKinney one was so bad.
Yep.
Why?
Yeah.
The Dest one was bad too.
Yeah. Yep. And it just didn't. The consistency wasn't there from the officials.
No. The thing
with doling out the cards.
So good too.
I mean, especially like the one on Pulisic. Like, I know the cheap shot, just going straight through him, not making a play on the ball,
arm
and
extended.
just you don't go to your pocket on that.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
Yeah, no, it's bullshit.
So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think you covered it there in terms of the recap. How you felt about that match, I think, was pretty much how I felt. Funny how that works. Spend a little bit of time together, see the game in a similar fashion.
2 idiots.
Yeah, 2 idiots. Previewing England a little bit. Obviously, they really opened up the throttle on Iran 6-2 in that match. I thought that England in the second half, it's easier to pick on this if the match was closer. Like, I don't fault them for maybe losing a little bit of focus and giving up those 2 goals. But I still think, despite that dominant opener from England, I still think the United States has a chance to not just get a point here, but legitimately win this match. It's going to be an uphill battle, especially with how like Pulisic was beat up after that. Weston McKennie was grabbing at his groin, which was injured before the tournament. Gio Reyna did not touch the field. And Berhalter says that he has like a tight hamstring still, even though Reyna himself said he was 100% ready. So who knows what the reality is there. Like, if we never have to see Jordan Morris on the field again this tournament, I would be happy. But if Reyna's just not ready to go, that's a big blow to the depth in that midfield.
That is painful if he is not ready to go. I agree. England is beatable. We're going to have to play more than 45 minutes of really good soccer to do that.
Yeah.
Because obviously they got world-class players on that roster.
At every position.
Yeah. So it's going to be it's going to be a test. But I will say I definitely think we can get a result. And, worst case kind of scenario, you can't let that game get out of hand because then you're just hoping that, the Wales game, if England takes them, that gets out of hand and you get that dub versus Iran.
Yep. But that's not even like, and we won't talk again on the pod until after that match happens next Tuesday. But Iran, despite that scoreline we saw in the first match, they are not a pushover. They're a top 22, 23 team in the FIFA rankings.
Yeah, no, I know. I agree. I'm just saying that's the most winnable game.
That's the path. Yeah. And I think at this point, now that you didn't get the 3 points, just making it out of the group is the ultimate goal. If we win on Friday, we can recalibrate. But with the goal differential right now, the way it is from that opening match for England, and the likelihood that you get 1 or 0 points here on Friday, we just have to, whatever the path is through the next 2 matches to make it out of this group, got to do it, man. If we don't make the knockout stage, that's a disappointment, I think, by anybody's standards.
A huge disappointment and letdown, especially because we haven't been here in 8 years.
Yeah, and also was a huge letdown that Easterdamus, I believe, had a 1-0 prediction on that game, and that's how it should have ended. So almost pulling it off to start the World Cup. But with that, let's go ahead and make our predictions. United States versus England, Black Friday. We have a pretty good record historically on the soccer field and on the battlefield against these fuckers. So, what are your thoughts here? I'm sure you're not going to predict a loss, but is it a draw? Where are you going, Easterdamus?
I am going draw.
Oh,
I am. I'm going to go 2-2.
Okay. Wow.
2-2 in a well-played, well-fought game. And then we get the win versus Iran. England beats Wales, and we get out of there.
Okay. I like
That's how I see this going forward.
Yeah. And I like the full group prediction too. I'll chime in here as well. I'll be that guy. 2-1 loss here on Friday. I think we're gonna struggle, man. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 2-0, but I'm gonna give our guys a goal and hopefully just more for our experience watching with our buddies wherever we end up. I want to have some excitement there. So I'll say 2-1 England. But then I will also say England takes care of Wales because when you get to those third matches in the group stage, they go concurrently. So there will be no scenario where it's England won this morning, so we know we only have to do X. It'll be very much scoreboard watching, decision day, which is exciting. So I will say England will take care of Wales, and we will squeak by Iran. Give me a 1-0 there. And get out of the group. But I guess it also will, that Wales-Iran match Friday morning is so important.
Yeah.
And I think we probably need to be cheering for Iran to just get the win there.
I agree.
And a draw at the very least. So it'll be an exciting Friday for us in Group B. And really every day, I'm having such a blast watching all these games, and it's really killing my productivity over this early part of the tournament here. Last thing before we get out of here, they did release the national television ratings for the United States in that first match. Number 1 market in the country, Austin, Texas. So let's get that old TIFO. Football capital of Texas. Let's cross it out, and football capital of the United States. That is a fact now.
It is a fact. point to figures.
Numbers, the figures, they all point to us.
That's right.
That'll do it for us. We appreciate you tuning in right at an hour here on episode 18, our Julio Cascante episode. No Julio news, but we do love Julio Cascante.
We do.
And we'll be back next week with more World Cup talk, more MLS news, probably some more Austin FC news. I would assume we'll get this Zardes signing done here. Maybe see some green smoke over the weekend. Who knows? We'll talk more World Cup as well. If you've got 5 seconds, wherever you're listening to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Spreaker, etc., if you can rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, really helps us out. Hoping you give us the 5 stars there. If you're listening on the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. The thumbs up on this video helps us grow the channel and continue to follow the North End Podcast on Twitter at the North End Pod for the final 4 days of our goal of the year bracket. For E, I'm Zach. Until next time, vamos Austin FC. Goodbye.
3, 2,